One of the most interesting stories about that is, or most instructive stories about that is Henry Ford's early days with the Ford Motor Company. Henry Ford sort of created the mass market durable automobile in 1908 with the advent of the Model T. You saw very quickly exponential growth in sales. Every year he would lower the cost of the car. He had frozen the design of the car because he felt it was the platonic ideal of the perfect car. And at the time, his vision was very successful. The car grew, was very popular, redefined our urban infrastructure, roads, et cetera, and subsequently the world. The most interesting thing, though, about Henry Ford was that his initial vision proved him right. And whether you want to say that this origin or the source was his interaction with potential customers, his tinkering in his workshop, or just pure divine inspiration, to me it doesn't matter. He was right. He was an amazingly talented person. But what's more interesting is when the market matured, when the Model T became went from a disruptive innovation to a sustaining innovation, so typical sort of product lifecycle type stuff, he stuck and clung to his initial vision. And that proved really interesting because the market reality was giving him totally different feedback. And he had very talented teams, and his internal team saw this. So they actually saw market share ticking off, and this is, I think, the late teens or the early 1920s. The market share was being taken away by GM. And so these internal teams would write these letters to Mr. Ford in very flowery English and from the early, turn of the century English, and they would suggest, basically new features. Right? Oh, we should consider the planetary clutch or the new brakes, et cetera, et cetera. He would go find these people, and he would actually go fire them on the spot or destroy their projects or what have you, because he'd taken an affront to his vision, which had produced the success. The sad story is that GM was doing what we would call sustaining innovation. So they had introduced an annual body style, a closed model car, new financing options, all sorts of interesting sustaining innovations that the market now, an educated market now demanded. And Ford, in the face of these, persevered his initial vision to the detriment of Ford shareholders, Ford employees, and the Ford Motor Company, in fact. And the lesson learned is not that where you get your vision from, is it, again, customer interaction, which is something Brant and I would favor, but let's say, again, it's divine inspiration. Let's say you're a genius. That's okay. The lesson learned is, does your vision actually match somewhere up with market reality? And if it doesn't, how do you change that? And that, I think, is a very interesting lesson about Ford, who was an amazingly talented entrepreneur on many levels, that his persistence, his persevering to the vision, which initially was very successful, actually led to a dramatic and very painful loss of market share for the Ford Motor Company, which it never recovered.